G-Wagon prices are on their way down after a crazy run-up. Some models lost 30% during the last year, but there are also exceptions. Prices for some cars stayed at the same level. And this is of course crucial information if you're in the market for one and don't want to lose a ton of money the moment you start to drive it. Welcome to the first market update for the G-Class. In this video we'll cover the US market and the price trends during the last year. We'll figure out which cars lost the most, which the least, and for which models the depreciation curve started to flatten. We start with an overview of the US market. Over here we have the prices in May 2023 for the clean titles split by model types. There are currently 1,554 cars listed for sale, and this is 10% less than 1 year ago, but 28% more than 3 months ago. And boy oh boy, there are many models to cover. If you, like me, look at the market for the first time, it can be a bit daunting to figure out what the differences are. The first generation contains already all the models, but you can see that there are big differences in, for example, the G55 market. The expensive cars over here are the squared versions, the ones with a brabus tune or have both. And if you're wondering what squared means, no worries, so did I. The squared version is basically the off-road version, which gets all sorts of lockable differentials and has an increased ride height. If you see one, you definitely know. Anyways, let's get back to the prices. When you think about a G-Wagon, you usually think about expensive cars, but it doesn't need to be. A G500 starts already at $30,000. Yes, you get an old one, but aren't they secretly cooler? Looking at the slightly newer examples, we can see that all cars are up until model year 2012 are priced between $30,000 and $65,000. In 2012, Mercedes released an updated version, and you can see that from this point onwards they start to get more expensive. You can also see that the G63 AMG was introduced. They go for a premium of approximately $15,000 compared to the G550. Jumping to the second generation, things start to get seriously expensive. Prices start at $120,000 for a G550, but go well over $500,000 for a squared version or a heavily tuned one. The premium for a G63 AMG also increased. For 2019 cars, this is approximately $45,000. Now most of these prices dropped significantly during last year, and if you're a buyer who cares about values, that's something you should be aware of. Let's have a look at the price trends for the different models and figure out which ones are the best buys. We'll first check out the high-level trends for each model and if necessary, dive into the details. We start with the G500 and the G55 AMG. Over here we can see that prices for both models decreased by approximately the same amount. G500s lost 14.8% or $6,600, while G55 AMGs lost 14.6% or $9,500. You can see that there are some small fluctuations in the price trends, but these are just the result of a changing market composition. Supply is relatively low in these markets. But now then, what about the G550s? That's a huge market, so we need to split up the price trends. Over here we have at the top the price trends for the squared first generation, in the middle for the second generation, and at the bottom for the first generation. All trends exclude the brabus versions. Now based on these aggregate trends, first gens lost 11.7%, the squared ones 21.2%, and the second generation 16.4%. And there are a few interesting things that we need to talk about. First, look at the difference between the squared and the normal ones. It's a drop of $50,000 versus one of $10,000. This is a typical case where rare doesn't equal strong residuals. Second, it's important to know that the drop for the second gen is an underestimation. New cars are added to the market continuously, so this keeps the median price relatively high compared to the first generation. Let's zoom into the second generation market. Over here we have the price development broken down per model year. And this shows that prices decreased on average by 25%. Yes, 25%. By itself that's not so special for a luxury SUV, but I can imagine that you're dismayed if you still thought that G-Wagon prices were strong. The price increases that you see for 2022 and 2023 cars are, by the way, predominantly the result of the number of new cars that are pushed to the market. Supply is increasing. Now this pattern that we see here applies only to a limited extent to the first generation. Also there we can see that low mileage cars lost more than high mileage cars, but the difference is only a few percentage points. And that makes sense, right? The cars are much older after all. And with that, it's time to have a look at the daddy, the G63 AMG. Over here we have the prices for the first and second generations. Again, excluding the brabus cars. This reveals that first gens lost 19.5% and second gens 17.1%. And this amounts to respectively $21,000 and $42,000. But again, these high-level numbers tell only part of the story. It is perhaps a bit boring, but trust me, it pays off to look at the details. Let's start with the second generation. Over here we can see the price development per model year, and this shows two things. First, the average depreciation rate is much higher than 17%. On average, the cars lost 26%. The 17% drop in the aggregate price trend was too optimistic due to the high market share of the new cars. Second, there are big differences between the model years. 2021 cars lost 30%, 2021's 26%, and cars from 2019 21%. In dollar amounts, this is $60,000 for the cars from 2021. A mind-boggling number. This pattern though is no complete surprise. Pre-pandemic depreciation curves used to look like this. New cars lost more than old cars. Moreover, if we go back to the graph, we can see that the depreciation curve for 2019 cars reached its inflection point. The cars are dropping slower and slower. So if you're in the market for a G63 AMG, I would definitely consider a 2019 car if depreciation matters to you. It's quite likely that these cars will lose significantly less than a 2021 car. The same advice also applies to the first gen cars. Let's have a look. We can see that 2018 cars lost the most. Prices dropped by 30%. 2013 and 2014 cars lost the least. They decreased by approximately 11%. So also if you're shopping for a first generation G63 AMG, it pays off to go for an older car. They're simply further on the depreciation curve. The depreciation per year and per 1,000 miles driven is lower. So we covered now many graphs, and I won't blame you if you got a little bit lost along the way. It was quite a lot of information. So let's summarize. Over here we have the average year-on-year price decrease by model type. And this shows that the second generation cars lost the most, followed by the G55 squared first generations and the G63 AMG's first generation. The G500, G55 AMG and G550 first generation lost considerably less than all of those cars. What's going on here? Well, we need to look at these numbers within the market context. Car prices in general skyrocketed during the pandemic, topped in the first half of last year and have been decreasing ever since. And if you're a subscriber, you've heard me saying this many times. If you aren't and you like this video, please click on the subscribe button down below. Now this decreasing market trend means that basically all cars decreased in price. The price drop what we are seeing in the G500, G550 AMG and G550 first generation market is then also mainly the result of these general market forces. These cars hardly depreciate by the fact that they're 1 year older, and also the depreciation per 1,000 miles is relatively low at 0.3% per 1,000 miles driven. The latest cars, however, are subject to the market forces and to the normal depreciation forces. Values decrease simply because they age and because they get driven. They can lose up to 0.7% on average per 1,000 miles driven. So it's no surprise that the loss rate is much higher when compared to the older cars. But all of this of course raises a new question. Are the depreciation rates in the G-Wagon market higher or lower than the market average? In an ideal world, we should compare the G-Wagon to all of its peers. But this is not an ideal world, as I tend to focus in my videos on sports and supercars. I only have data for the Lamborghini Urus, a car that is perhaps not a direct competitor, but I'm sure that there are a few people who are cross-shopping them. Looking at this graph for the Urus, we can see that the base version of the Urus lost approximately 17% during the last 9 months. If we extrapolate this by 3 months, we arrive at an average year-over-year price drop of 23%. So this would mean that it depreciated significantly less than a G-Wagon. Remember that a young G63 AMG lost up to 30%, much more than a comparable Urus. Now a drop of 30% is seriously high, also when compared to the sports and supercars that normally feature on my channel. For those, values at 20% are quite extreme. The G-Class falls of course in a different category, but still, a drop of 30% is significant. And with that it's time to wrap up and conclude. Prices for G-Wagons are falling, but there are big differences within the G-Wagon market. The latest models lost up to 30%, while older models lost between 10 and 15%. And these last numbers are in line with the general car market, while the rates for the newer cars appear to be slightly higher than the average decreases. So what does this mean if you're in the market for a G-Wagon and care about values? The old, normal depreciation patterns are back to some extent. And this means that older cars lose less than newer ones. To many that's no big surprise, but if you started to get interested in cars during the pandemic, it might be a shocker. With credit still tightening and new cars entering the market, albeit more expensive, I think that it's unlikely that we will see large changes to these trends in the foreseeable future. And with that we arrived at the end of the first market update for the G-Class. Please let me know what you think of it. Are there crucial splits missing? Would you like to see more or less of certain models? Or get more updates on the scarcity level in the market? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also remember that you can find many more market updates on my channel. So if you like this data-driven way of analyzing car markets, head over to my channel. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.